this is a path to production, right? And the enterprise category between you, Anthropic, OpenAI, it's a fierce battle. I think let's just start by you explaining why you feel this is such a significant milestone for Mistral.
Hello, and happy to be here. For us, we're a global company really focused on creating value for the enterprises. And we have had 3 years now of experience in doing that. And so AI Studio is basically the one-stop shop platform where you can build your AI application as a business. And so it brings everything that we need to create value in the enterprise, to create applications that belongs to the enterprises, that contains their IP, that is connected to their data, and that improves over time by leveraging the knowledge that is contained within enterprises, that is contained within employees' mind.
You are a global company. You're producing foundational models, Arthur. I wonder, though, how you compete against those that are already serving the enterprise. How is your solution different from that of Anthropic's, that of OpenAI's, that of X's, and many others?
Well, I think our solution is much more integrated in that we have thought about all of the bricks that needed to be there to go from a model, which is how we started, to an application with the right front end, with the right back end, and with the right learning mechanisms. So that integration is really the reason why we've been succeeding in delivering value with enterprises. So that's one very strong area of differentiation. The other thing is that in contrast with some of our competitors, we really believe that enterprises should build their own AI, that they should own the system, that the IP should remain their own, that the data should remain where it is and should not necessarily flow back to us. And so that approach of building a portable platform that can be deployed on-prem, that can be deployed on private cloud, combined with the vertically integrated approach of having just one platform allowing you to go from prototype to production, I think is very, very different from the approach of our competitors. And that has allowed us to make a lot of progress, in particular in the US.
Arthur, can you talk about how quickly you're able to onboard scaled enterprise customers to this? And in turn, therefore, what the capacity and compute constraints are for you in launching a new product and then trying to run workloads with clients?
Well, a good example that I can give you is what we've been doing with one of our big customers, which is a logistic company called CMA CGM, and one of the biggest shipping company in the world. And so as many other companies, they were a bit struggling with the adoption of AI. If you look at the MIT reports, they state that 95% of use cases just don't go into production. And the way we have done the work with them is we used AI Studio and we deployed our AI applied engineers, our AI applied scientists. We made them work with the business unit owners, and they realized what kind of processes could be automated end to end. And from ideating what we could automate to going into production, so from March to July, in 4 months, we were able to understand a full function to be automated, so cargo release and dispatching of release of containers to multiple customers. We're able to go from that to production that is now going at a global scale. So the way we think about it is that it takes a quarter to go from a prototype to a production. And for it to happen, you need to have the right tools. You need to have the right tools. You need to have the right experts. You need to deeply understand what AI agents can do and cannot do. You need to connect the agents to the data sources. You need to connect them to software, which is sometimes legacy. So you need to have the right interfaces, the right plumbing. That's what AI Studio can bring. You also need to have the experts. So that's why we deploy people in the companies that we work with.
Arthur, there is intense interest in Mistral as the European champion among AI labs, frontier labs. The thing we're most interested to learn about is the progress of the follow-on fundraising round that's reported you're undertaking. How much money are you seeking to raise? But beyond the money, why do you need to do a quick follow-on? What is the most pressing need for capital at the moment?
So I'm not sure we'll talk to you about the follow-on, but we are not raising money at the moment. We've just actually announced a fundraise with ASML, which is the biggest European company, and with whom we work, with whom we have a commercial agreement, where we help them make better products, automate their processes. We help connect their vertical expertise to our horizontal expertise. We make them create their own AI and deploy this AI into their systems. So that was a 1.7 billion euro raise, which makes us, we've raised around 3 billion euro in total.
Yeah.
And that in turn has enabled us to grow very fast and to create unique technology and to release it in particular on the open source world.
That was really interesting, this strategic investment coming from ASML. You just referenced CMA CGM, another French-based giant. It's a global company, but it's French-based. You got work with Stellantis, you got work with BNP Paribas. What about US companies? How are you managing to penetrate here?
So we are working with multiple US companies. We're working with Cisco, for instance, which has chosen us because we allow them to deploy on private cloud, and we deploy people to work with them, in particular on the customer experience side. So that's one important customer of ours. We also work with Snowflake, deploy our technology, in particular on document processing and all of our technology to structure unstructured knowledge into to take unstructured knowledge and turn it into things that can then be crawled by AI systems. We also work, as you know, with Microsoft, which is a very important partner of ours and exposes our model on Foundry. Our models being very competitive, in particular on their cost to performance ratio. We work with AWS and GCP, and we work with multiple digital natives companies as well.
Arthur, your peers, Dario Amodei from Anthropic, Sam Altman, OpenAI, are looking increasingly to the Middle East, both for capital, but compute capacity, right? This week, we broke the news of Anthropic securing 1 million TPUs with Google and GCP. That's the scale that people are talking about. Are you making those future plans for scale? Are you looking at debt markets to ensure the future of Mistral and what you want to do?
The future of artificial intelligence is very linked to infrastructure, as you know, and as a consequence of that, we have created a new business unit called Mistral Compute, which is creating digital infrastructure, GPUs in particular, in Europe, which is lacking infrastructure today. And so we've been growing that very fast, and we are acquiring multiple hundreds of megawatts capacity in the coming year to actually be able to serve our customers, to serve AI startups, to serve all of our existing customers and customers that come to us because they are looking for sovereign capacity. We also use that capacity to train our own models and to maintain our leadership on the open source front.
But with that comes the need to continue to invest. You've raised money, and is that what's being used to finance the exploration and data center build out? Because I'm looking at a headline at the moment that the Bank of England itself is really worried about a so-called AI bubble and some of the debt and the financing that's going on of data centers at the moment. Is that something that gives you pause, Arthur?
Well, we've raised equity, and we are deploying that equity to actually train models. So R&D is financed by our equity. We also have long-term contracts for our compute facilities. And with those long-term contracts, we are able to actually finance them through debt. But that's not, this is bank debt and gives us confidence that we are not overly exposed to debt. There is a lot of investment happening on the infrastructure side today. We're really focused on creating the long-term value that will justify those investments. Because we operate with enterprises, because we go all the way to delivering value for them, to identifying their use cases, to making things that transforming what looks like magic to something that looks like money. We are not exposed to whatever may happen on overly investing on the infrastructure side. We invest on the infrastructure side in a wise way.